Alien Diplomat believed she was unchallenged until a human forced her to rethink everything. Sci-Fi HFY story. In the vast expanse of the universe, where great civilizations intersect and collide, Selina Reese is a name that cannot be overlooked. As the ambassador of the Galaxian Dominion, an ancient empire renowned for its majesty and superior intellect, Selina walks through the corridors of Vega Station like a living symbol of power. Her jet-black hair, long and glossy, frames her graceful face. Her golden, gleaming eyes, at times stern, make everyone slow down their gaze whenever they stop on her. As a Theasian, Selina's smooth green skin reflects the artificial light from the station's bright lights, creating an almost luminous effect, making her appear as a mysterious creature from distant planets. Each step she takes along the vast corridor of Vega Station is a silent declaration of power and status. She doesn't need to draw attention to herself, for her position, the supreme diplomatic envoy of the Galaxian Dominion, speaks for itself. However, even though her presence easily dominates the space, Selina never allows that curiosity to extend beyond her own circle. She possesses that strange power, and she will never let anyone, no matter who they are, forget it. In Selina's eyes, Vega Station is the perfect symbol of the universe's dominance by ancient civilizations. Built to serve as a ground for negotiations between civilizations, this space station is where all diplomacy must adhere to strict principles, with the Galaxian Dominion always at the top. While she appears indifferent to the presence of humans, a young and developing species, Selina cannot help but feel a slight irritation as they quickly take prominent positions in interstellar negotiations. It's something she cannot easily accept, despite having to admit that they've made rapid progress. But in her heart, they are still mere newcomers, lacking the understanding of the refined legacy that she and other ancient civilizations have built over millennia. But everything is about to change when a shadow enters her life. A man standing amidst the rushing crowds, seemingly unremarkable in appearance, yet he makes Selina stop and observe. This is Mark Donovan, the new head of security at Vega Station, a man with a muscular build, a strong physique, and cold gray eyes. He is unlike anyone she has ever met. He doesn't bow his head when looking at her, and shows no respect whatsoever. He stands there, looking directly at her as if she were just another part of the station, no different from anything else. When the two face each other in an unexpected situation, Mark accidentally brushes past Selina. The touch isn't anything serious, but to Selina, it is a serious violation. She turns back with a sharp gaze and cold words. "Be careful if you don't want trouble." Mark simply shrugs, his gaze never leaving hers. "Apologies, Ambassador," he says, but his tone carries no hint of remorse. "I'm just not used to seeing people walk around without paying attention to their surroundings." Selina stopped, feeling the chill emanate from every word he spoke. She couldn't believe that something as simple as an accidental brush could ignite a confrontation between her and this man, one that she felt would not be easily won by anyone. All other species were forced to regard her with respect, but Mark, with his cold gray eyes and solid build, dared to stand there without bowing once. And within Selina, a new sense of challenge began to rise. As she continued walking, a sense of discomfort stirred within her. She couldn't explain why, but Mark's calm demeanor felt like a direct challenge. This was no longer just about power or status. This had become a competition of pride, a test that Selina could not ignore. Although she didn't want to admit it, deep down she started to feel a strange attraction to this man, someone she never imagined could ever shake her sense of superiority. Selina knew that her encounter with Mark Donovan would not be a typical confrontation, and within her, the challenge wasn't just about power, it was about changes she had never been prepared for. A few days after the tense meeting between Selina and Mark, a serious threat emerged, forcing them both to work together. A terrorist organization called the Order of Dominion had uncovered sensitive information regarding the negotiations at Vega Station and planned to attack the space station. This intelligence was reported by the station's security agencies, but the details were far from clear. Despite their strained relationship, both Selina and Mark found themselves having to confront this dangerous situation together. In an emergency meeting, Selina sat quietly in the middle of the room, her mind swirling with thoughts on how to resolve the crisis. The Order of Dominion had repeatedly targeted critical diplomatic stations, and with the current situation, Vega Station could very well be the next target. She began to propose strong, immediate measures, ordering a full lockdown of the diplomatic zone and suspending all negotiations until the situation was clarified. She firmly believed that keeping everything under her control was necessary, and there was no option but to protect the station at any cost. However, Mark disagreed with Selina's approach. He stood up, his expression cold and calm. Locking down the entire diplomatic zone isn't the best solution. It will only cause panic and disrupt the ongoing negotiations. We need to approach this situation more delicately. We need to gather information, verify the threat, and continue the negotiations without disrupting the work of the ambassadors. Selina looked at him sharply, not hiding her disdain. You think that in a situation as dangerous as this, we can still play political games, Mark? If we don't control the situation, everything will collapse. You can't understand the need to maintain stability and power in diplomacy like I can. Mark frowned but remained unyielding. Power isn't always the answer to control everything. Peace isn't built on fear and oppression. We need to handle this threat responsibly, but also ensure the ambassadors feel safe and calm, rather than making them panic with extreme measures like you're suggesting. A surge of frustration rose within Selina. She couldn't accept his stubbornness. She had always believed that power was the only key to maintaining peace, and controlling every situation was an integral part of her strategy. But Mark, a human who had only just joined this vast universe, dared to say that she was overreacting? You don't understand, Mark, Selina replied, her voice low and challenging. Civilizations like ours have existed for millennia, with a clear hierarchy in everything. We maintain peace not by treating every species equally, but by understanding the place of each civilization in this universe. And humans, no matter how advanced, are still just newcomers who have no grasp of the complexities in interstellar negotiations. Mark was not affected by her words. He continued, his tone calm and patient. So you think peace is easily maintained when civilizations should see themselves as superior and others as just something to conquer? Humans, though young, have learned how to treat other species equally. And it is that treatment, along with mutual respect, that is truly the key to a lasting peaceful future. The argument between them showed no sign of stopping. Each of them believed their approach was the right one, but neither was willing to change their viewpoint. While Selina remained steadfast in her belief that power and clear hierarchy were essential for maintaining stability, Mark was equally firm in his conviction that respect and equality were the only paths to true peace. Suddenly, an emergency report from the intelligence agencies was relayed. The Order of Dominion was conducting a fake attack designed to probe the responses of space stations. While this information might not represent an immediate threat, it indicated a growing risk to Vega Station. And though they still disagreed with each other, both Selina and Mark understood that they had to work together to ensure the station's safety. They left the meeting room, each carrying their own thoughts. Although the situation was temporarily resolved, the tension between them only increased. With every step, every decision, their relationship became more complicated, and the big question began to form. Would their differences in perspective help them overcome this challenge, or would these very contradictions be the element that unravels everything? Gradually, Selina felt an uncontrollable sensation creeping into her mind. She had always believed that power was the only thing that could maintain stability in interstellar negotiations, that her untouchable status was something that could never be altered. But facing Mark, for the first time in her entire diplomatic career, she felt a sense of stagnation, as if a part of her being had been stripped away. He, whom she had once considered nothing more than a simple security officer, was the only one bold enough to challenge her openly, so strongly that she couldn't help but rethink her own identity. One morning, after a tense meeting with ambassadors from various civilizations, Selina stood by the window in her office. The large glass pane allowed her to gaze out at distant stars, but their faint light did little to soothe the unease in her heart. She couldn't deny that something had changed in her confrontation with Mark. A strange feeling had crept in, not anger, but an ambiguous, unclear emotion. For the first time, she felt that her power was no longer inviolable. The door to her office opened, and without knocking, Mark stepped in, ignoring the formalities she had grown so accustomed to. That seemingly insignificant action made Selina feel that her authority was being directly challenged. He sat across from her nonchalantly, his eyes never leaving hers, as if she were not the most powerful diplomat in the room, but just another person sitting across from him. "Selina," Mark spoke, his voice calm but with a sharp certainty. "You know that what you did yesterday was extreme. Those people aren't enemies, they're just seeking understanding. You can't impose your power on everyone like that." Selina glared at him, narrowing her eyes, her voice full of defiance. "You don't understand anything, Mark," she responded, trying to maintain the arrogance in her tone. "Power is what maintains stability. What I did was to protect everything. Peace can't be maintained without control. And you're just a security officer. You can't understand the weight of these decisions." Mark showed no sign of being affected. He simply stared at her coldly. "Your control only breeds fear, Selina. That's not peace. True peace is built on understanding and mutual respect. You can't maintain your untouchable status forever." His words struck her like a powerful blow to her mind. Selina knew he was right, but she couldn't accept that truth. Power was the only way she knew how to protect everything she had built. As the ambassador of the Galaxian Dominion, she had fought for years to earn the respect and power she held. And now, a man with these cold eyes dared to tell her she was wrong? "You don't know anything about me, Mark," she replied, her hands clenched tightly. "You don't know what I've gone through to get to where I am. Power is not something you can just give up." "Maybe I don't understand everything about you," Mark answered, his voice softening. "But I do know that too much power will cause everything to collapse. One day, you'll realize that your arrogance can't last forever." A cold sensation rose in Selina's chest. She couldn't deny that Mark's words made her reconsider. He looked at her not with respect, but with clarity and practicality, and that unsettled her. In the following days, the relationship between Selina and Mark grew more tense than ever. Although they still had to work together to deal with the threats from the Order of Dominion, Selina couldn't deny the discomfort she felt every time Mark looked directly into her eyes. He showed no deference, no bowing before her power. That feeling, the sense of being challenged not only in her work but in her pride, made it hard for her to control her emotions. One late evening, as Selina stepped out of her office, she noticed Mark standing alone in the darkness of the hallway. He was staring into the infinite void, his gray eyes reflecting the light from distant stars. She approached him not out of anger or to argue, but to understand more about this man, the only one who could make her feel so small. "Mark," she began, her voice slightly altered. "Who are you really? Why do I feel like you could destroy everything I've built?" Mark turned to face her, not surprised to see her. His gaze remained cold, but there was something different in it now. "You really want to know?" he asked, his tone as calm as ever, yet carrying an unspoken challenge. Selina met his gaze, determined not to back down. "I've never met anyone like you," she replied. "You're not just an ordinary security officer. Who are you?" Mark paused for a moment, his eyes darkening as he remembered his past. "I used to work on special assignments," he said, his voice heavy. "I've protected diplomatic delegations in the most dangerous situations. Once, I almost lost my life protecting a delegation from Orionis Delta. We humans don't have much to be proud of, but we know how to fight when it's necessary." Selina was silent. His words left her frozen, unable to respond immediately. Mark, whom she had only thought of as a simple security officer, had such a turbulent past, filled with high-risk missions that she couldn't even begin to imagine. "And one more thing," Mark said, his eyes no longer cold as before. "We don't have as much power as you, Selina, but we know how to make others feel safe. That's the difference between us and you." The cold sensation in Selina's chest gradually gave way to confusion and surprise. She had always thought that power and control were everything, but now Mark's words made her reconsider that belief. He wasn't someone who challenged her. He was someone with responsibility, with ideals, and a clear purpose. And in that moment, Selina realized that perhaps She had been wrong. They both stood in silence in the darkness, the light from the stars casting down, reflecting the quiet thoughts swirling in Selina's mind. She couldn't deny that, in some way, Mark had forced her to reconsider herself and the career she had spent years building. A small change, but enough to make her feel vulnerable, enough to make her begin again, learning to see the world not just through the lens of power, but also through respect and understanding. The feelings of confusion, unease, and unfamiliarity, it all started with Mark's presence, and Selina realized that perhaps he was the one who would ultimately help her find the most important thing in life, the true balance between power and compassion. The calm on Vega Station didn't last long. One morning, as Selina was reviewing documents for upcoming negotiations, the emergency alarms blared. The station's alert system suddenly erupted, causing panic among those around her. Red lights flashed in the darkness, and the voice of a security officer came through the loudspeakers. All personnel, prepare to respond to the emergency. A group of intergalactic terrorists has infiltrated Vega Station. Immediate precautionary measures are required. Selina froze. An attack right on their peace station? Never had she felt such gravity in a situation. Without hesitation, she stood up, left her office, and quickly headed for the control center. Her entourage and assistants were already there. But as they noticed Mark's figure appearing from afar, Selina felt a wave of unease. Just days ago, she had been in conflict with him, but now they had to join forces to protect the station. Mark didn't come empty-handed. He was already part of the security team, his expression still cold. But when he saw Selina, he showed no sign of contempt or ignoring her. Instead, his gaze was direct, meeting hers with seriousness. We need to act now. The meeting room doors will be locked within minutes, and we have to neutralize the threat before the terrorists can reach the diplomatic area. Selina looked at him, the tension rising. She could feel that this was not a negotiation, but a real battle. After all, she wasn't ready to place her trust in someone like Mark, someone she had once seen as nothing more than a simple security officer. But now, in this situation, there was no time for doubt. "What's the plan?" she asked, her sharp gaze almost daring him to answer. She needed him, though she wouldn't admit it. "We need to coordinate," Mark replied calmly. "I'll lead the security team into the enemy's area, and you need to make sure the ambassadors and delegations are moved to safety immediately. We must keep everyone calm and halt all negotiations. We can't let the terrorists cause more chaos." A strange feeling rose within Selina. She hadn't expected that the very man she had considered an opponent would be the one to help her navigate this situation. But as she looked into Mark's serious eyes, she realized an undeniable truth. He was the only one who could help her maintain peace right now. He was a true warrior, not only protecting safety, but also defending what she had been trying to build for years: peace between civilizations. "All right," Selina said, her voice firm. "I'll follow your plan. But if anything goes wrong, you'll be the one held responsible." Mark simply nodded, unaffected by her mild threat. He had grown accustomed to high-stress situations like this. "We'll be safe, Selina. I guarantee that." In just a few minutes, the two of them, one, the powerful ambassador of the Galaxian Dominion, and the other, the ordinary head of security of Vega Station, were able to collaborate seamlessly. Despite the lingering tension and their differences, they knew now was not the time to argue about power or concede to arrogance. They both had a shared mission: to protect Vega Station and ensure the safety of those they represented. Mark led the security team into the danger zone, where the terrorist group was attempting to breach critical meeting rooms. At the same time, Selina directed the ambassadors to quickly move to the designated safe areas. Everyone seemed to understand that there was no other choice but to follow the orders. "Move quickly," Selina shouted, her eyes gleaming with determination. "There's no time to hesitate." Even though a part of her still felt tense and uncertain, she realized that trusting Mark's plan was essential. Mark wasn't just an ordinary security officer. He understood the danger and urgency of the situation. He handled everything with calm precision, never letting any distractions interfere with his duties. About 30 minutes later, the terrorist group was defeated with no major casualties. The security team, under Mark's leadership executed a rapid counterattack with outstanding precision. Meanwhile, Selina stood outside the safety zone, observing everything unfold. She felt a sense of relief as everyone had been safely moved to secure areas, but she couldn't stop thinking about how Mark had managed the entire operation. He had displayed a level of leadership and tactical skill that she had never imagined. As she approached, Mark turned to look at her, his gray eyes unchanged. He simply nodded, but there was something in his gaze that Selina had never seen before, an unspoken respect. "Thank you," Selina said, her voice softening a bit. "You did well." Mark shrugged, a small smile appearing on his lips. "Thank you, Ambassador. I was just doing my job, and you did well too." As Selina stood there, facing Mark, she realized something. Not everyone could maintain their composure in situations like this. She had once seen him as an opponent, but now she looked at him as a reliable partner, someone who had helped her overcome the greatest challenge of her career. And that, though small, completely changed the way she viewed him. In that moment, a genuine respect formed between them, and Selina understood that from now on, she and Mark would not just be colleagues, they had become true partners. The crisis had passed, and Vega Station gradually returned to its usual rhythm, but something had changed. Selina realized she no longer maintained her untouchable status as she had before. After the intense events, the direct confrontation with unclear and dangerous enemies had made her acknowledge an undeniable truth. In this situation, Mark was not just a security officer, but a real partner, someone who could do things that she could not do alone. In the following days, as Selina entered the meeting room to prepare for an important negotiation with the Dracorians and Terralians, she no longer saw Mark as just a security officer. He had become an indispensable part of her work. Gone was the cold distance. Now there was only calmness and composure. When she entered, he was already there, eyes fixed on the information screens, thoroughly preparing for the upcoming situation. "Hello, Mark," Selina said, walking in with a serious expression, but her tone no longer carried the stiffness it once had. In her eyes, he was no longer an opponent, but a trusted teammate. "Hello, Selina," Mark replied, not immediately looking up, but his voice carried a respect she had never felt from him before. "Are you ready?" "Always," she answered, and was surprised to find the harmony in their response. There was a newfound ease in both their work and their communication. They understood each other better now, no longer exchanging confrontational glances, but engaging in subtle collaboration. Mark finally lifted his eyes from the screen, his gray eyes gleaming with quiet confidence. "You can trust me, Selina. Today, we'll get this mission done without any issues." Selina looked at him, a flood of emotions rising within her. For the first time, she truly felt the truth in his words. She no longer felt like she was facing everything alone. She didn't have to carry everything by herself anymore. They were working together. Although the work was still demanding, Selina began to feel fewer tense moments between herself and Mark. They had gradually built a relationship that was no longer just a professional collaboration, but one of mutual respect, and even a budding, sincere friendship. Each time they made decisions together in meetings, they no longer faced off. Instead, they shared a common goal. One late afternoon, as the negotiations with the Dracorians and Terralians reached a critical stage, Selina stood before the window of Vega Station, her eyes quietly gazing at the distant stars. She had spent her entire life building a career filled with power, but now, standing in the vastness of space, she felt a profound stillness and understood that there was something far more important than political negotiations, something beyond the power she had always held. Mark approached, standing beside her without saying a word. He simply gazed at the stars, as if sharing her thoughts. After a long silence, Selina spoke softly. "Mark, you've changed me," she said, her voice gentle but full of sincerity. "I used to think that power was everything, that I needed to control everything. But now I understand that peace can't be maintained just by power. It needs respect, understanding, and sometimes a little humility too." Mark turned to look at her, his gray eyes glowing warmly. "You've changed me too, Selina," he said, his tone soft and sincere. "I used to think that strength and decisiveness were all that mattered, but now I know we can't solve everything with power. Sometimes it's by listening and respecting our differences that we can truly build peace." Selina felt warmth in her heart. His words were not just encouragement, they were empathy. She had begun to understand that the values of peace didn't come from power or control, but from listening and understanding. One evening, as they stood on the observation deck of Vega Station, gazing at the breathtaking vastness of the universe, the space between them seemed to naturally open up. No longer was there tension between them. Instead, a new connection blossomed, one built on mutual respect and understanding. "Mark," Selina began, her gaze lost in the endless expanse before her, "you've helped me see things differently. I used to believe that I had to always maintain power. But now, I understand that only when we know how to share and listen can we truly work together." Mark didn't respond immediately, silently standing next to her, his eyes fixed on the vastness, but there was no distance between them. "You're right," he finally replied, his voice calm. "All change, all relationships require empathy and trust. I believe we can do more than this, Selina, together." As those words lingered in the air, Selina felt something gentle stir within her, as though the wall between them had completely dissolved. She no longer felt alone, no longer felt the need to fight on her own. She had a true companion, someone she could trust. They stood in silence, looking toward the stars, but in that moment, no more words were needed. It was just the quiet presence of each other, full of understanding and respect. And in that moment, Selina realized there was nothing more powerful than learning to understand others, learning to share and work together toward a common goal. After all the conflicts and challenges, Selina finally realized that true strength did not come from power or control. Strength came from empathy, humility, and the ability to listen to differences, despite initial opposition. Mark had helped her change her perspective on herself, her work, and the world around her. He was not just a partner, but someone who had opened her eyes, helping her understand that sometimes the greatest strength is the ability to listen and respect those around you. Their story did not end at Vega Station. It was the beginning of something new, a new beginning of peace built on the foundation of trust and genuine cooperation between people from different walks of life. And from then on, Selina no longer sought power or control. She found peace within herself and in the relationships she had cultivated. She stood by the window, her eyes gazing out at the vast and eternal space, where distant stars reflected in her soul thoughts she had never considered before. Her whole life had been about power and pride, believing that those were the most crucial factors in maintaining stability and dominance in the universe. But now, after the trials and conflicts she had faced, she realized that power and control didn't always lead to success. In fact, she had learned that true strength doesn't come from imposing power, but from the ability to open up and understand others. Mark, who she had once seen as an adversary, a challenge to her authority, was the one who had helped her reconsider herself. He was not just an excellent security officer, but a true partner, someone with a deep understanding of peace and the cooperation between civilizations. He taught her that peace wasn't the product of absolute power, but the result of listening, of understanding, and respecting differences. Throughout her journey working with him, Selina had come to realize that to truly grow, not just professionally, but personally, she needed to learn to listen and share work with those who were different, not control everything by herself. As she entered the meeting room to prepare for the negotiations with the Dracorians and Tauralians, Selina no longer saw Mark as just a regular security officer. He had become an indispensable part of her work. Every decision, every strategy was executed in perfect coordination. They no longer faced off against each other, but had become true partners, individuals who learned from and supported each other in every situation. The feeling Selina once had that she had to be the one in control, managing everything on her own, was now gone. She felt that this new respect and collaboration had made her stronger than ever before. One afternoon, as they stood on the observation deck of Vega Station, gazing at the twinkling stars, Selina couldn't help but reflect on the journey she and Mark had gone through. She remembered the tension, the confrontations they had faced together, and realized that all those challenges had helped her grow in ways she never expected. "Mark," she began, her voice soft but filled with sincerity, "You've changed me. I used to think that only power could protect peace. But now I understand that peace cannot be maintained solely by power. It needs respect, the ability to listen, and acceptance of differences." Mark stood beside her, his gray eyes still fixed on the distant stars. "You've changed me too, Selina," he said. "I used to think that strength, decisiveness was all that mattered. But now I know, to build peace, we can't rely solely on strength. We need to learn to listen and understand what others bring to the table." At that moment, Selina felt a warmth rise within her. She no longer felt alone or like she had to fight everything on her own. She didn't need to maintain power to feel valuable. Mark had shown her that sometimes true strength doesn't come from control, but from the ability to open up and accept differences. That feeling, for the first time in her life, made her realize that it was cooperation and understanding that truly formed the foundation for all success. One evening, at an important diplomatic event, Selina and Mark stood side by side, attending a ceremony marking the cooperation between civilizations. It was a moment to demonstrate that the combination of diplomacy and security could yield positive results, not only protecting the stability of Vega Station, but also helping to build a sustainable future for other civilizations. They were no longer opponents, no longer competitors for power. They were friends, true partners, collaborating for a common goal, peace and prosperity for all civilizations. "We've come a long way," Selina said, her eyes searching for Mark in the crowd. "We're not just protecting Vega Station, but the future of civilizations. This is not just my job or your job, it's our job, a task that we must undertake together." Mark smiled lightly, his eyes reflecting the respect he had for her. "That's right, Selina. Thank you for helping me understand that, in this world, sometimes, no one can do everything alone. We need to work together in order to truly understand and empathize with each other." They stood together, looking toward the future. It was a future filled with new opportunities, new challenges, but also a chance to build a more peaceful world among civilizations. Their gaze was not that of victors, but of companions on a shared journey. They stood not just to face the challenges ahead, but to know, without a doubt, that they would continue to work together to create a more peaceful future, a world where cooperation and respect between civilizations would always be the foundation for success. Selina and Mark, from two individuals who once clashed and were full of contradictions, had now become irreplaceable partners in the mission to build peace between civilizations. And together, they would continue, not just because of the work, but because of the eternal values of understanding, trust, and mutual respect.